there, welcome back to today's episode. This is Victoria and Ryan Cole. You're listening to Needed Conversations. We're continuing our conversation about dating and some of the issues that we're dealing with in today's society.
That's right. It's a big dating dilemma, especially post-COVID, and trying to navigate how to date in this modern world.
Techie world,
yeah. Dating apps, social media, and then just because of the way we live our lives now, sort of our dating standards are different. Yeah. And now you have all of these other dilemmas like gender roles and, compatibility looks a lot different than it did hundreds of years ago, really as recently as like the 1800s or 1900s.
Yeah, I think, you know what, the biggest challenge for us is the social sites supposedly connect us more, but I feel like they're also more dividing as well because we tend to kind of hide behind them. So I feel like even though we are closer than ever before because we're on the computer, we can talk to somebody or we can see what somebody's lifestyle is, I feel like in some sense we don't have as much of that community as we have in the past.
Yeah, it feels a bit artificial.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. It's artificial intelligence, and there's algorithms sort of manipulating those connections as well. So they really aren't as organic as bumping into a random stranger at the grocery store and striking up a random conversation that leads to a date, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what today's episode is going to be about. You upgrading your dating strategy, how to navigate the good and the bad of dating apps, and just to be a resource for all those singles out there who feel lost in the shuffle, who maybe haven't been on a date in a while because you've just given up on trying to find love, but deep down in your heart you still want to be married, or just people who maybe date all the time, but it feels like you're going through an endless stream of dead ends. We want to help you, and that's what our ministry is all about, Empowered Culture Ministries. And we have a lot of resources. We have books, we have online webinars, courses that you can go through as a single person. You don't have to do it alone. We're here to help you and coach you through the process so that you end up with lasting love. If you want more info on any of those resources that I mentioned, go to moremostforever.com. moremostforever.com, and make sure you're following us on social media. You're subscribed to as many places as you can, text, email, etc. And we're open. Text us, and we do respond for sure. And if you're married, you're listening to this podcast, please don't tune off just because we're talking about dating. Because like we've said the past couple of weeks, this is a resource for you to help you, inspire and empower those single people in your life, and for you in your marriage as well, finding ways to reignite the spark in your relationship, because the way you catch them is the way you keep them. That's what I always tell people.
That's good.
So you can't catch them one way and then expect them to still feel as pursued without all of the bait that you used in the beginning. Now, granted, I know seasons change. We talk about that in marriage. Yeah. And I think you can't hold yourself captive to the dating years. But if you're married out there and you haven't asked your spouse out on a date in a while, let this be your reminder. Shoot them a text. It's as little as that. Or just say, hey, we need to go on a date. And plan it. Don't just consider the fact that you're eating every day together through the cares of life a date, right? It takes intentionality. So don't tune out. We've got some great information for you. But today we are talking about your dating strategy in this modern world, and in particular, some of the things you can do to reignite your dating life, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I know Victoria's and our story, we've shared it many times, and it's actually cataloged in our book, which I love that to pass to our kids, and we've inspired so many people. But I think one of the commonalities that we had as our paths kind of ran parallel together right at the same time was the fact that you and I both were sort of content with who we were, and we were getting really clear about the calling of God upon our lives and what we wanted for the rest of our lives. And so when we came together, it felt sort of seamless. And I want that for everybody out there.
Yeah.
I want them to feel the way that we felt on our first date when you grabbed a hold of my arm coming down the stairs of, when I picked you up, and the rest of that night you didn't let go. And it was just endless conversation about things that really mattered. We were friends for a year, and so we had that benefit, of weeding through all of the superficial stuff, and it didn't feel like that we were bringing an imposter to the date. We really showed up as our authentic selves, and we shared our dreams, and that sort of was what began weaving our heart together. But a lot of people don't ever get to those wonderful dates because it feels like that there's an endless barrage of dead ends, as I mentioned earlier. What would you say right off the bat to the single women out there, and even the men as well, but from a woman's perspective?
I know it's definitely more difficult, I think, in this day and age for us, because like I said before, that even though we have, social media and all that kind of stuff that seems to make us feel like we're closer together, or at least knowing something about people. But honestly, I think it also helps us to kind of mask who we truly are. And that's not to say that you should completely show everything that you need to show on social media. I think it's about making sure that, like Ryan said, is having the personal realization that you know what your purpose is and what your calling is, and being content with yourself. I've always said this to so many single people. It's like, it literally happens whenever you become very content with yourself. It's like, Lord, I'm going to put it in your hands. And that's not to say that you shouldn't put yourself out there, which is what we're going to talk about today. But really becoming content with yourself and understanding what your purpose is in life, because that's important to know before you go into the dating zone, and being able to express yourself authentically to somebody and saying, this is what my values are, this is what my heart is, and not being afraid to share that, because that's important to display your authentic self.
I think that is different from what I've heard other people say, which was, I had given up on trying to date and be married. Like, I'd content, like if I was going to be single the rest of my life, then I'm fine. We're not talking about that contentment, because you might still have that burning desire to be married, which is God given. Yeah. Like, it's not sin, and it's not wrong to want to be married, because that's God's gift to us. And so it's okay. But I think the contentment that she's talking about is having a full awareness of your values, the vision that you have for your life. Even if it's not 100% clear, you have a direction that you're going, you're pursuing God, your relationship with God is very solid. That's the type of contentment that we're talking about. And so those two things can be true at the same time. You can want for marriage, etc., and also be content at the same time. And that's where we were. I don't think either one of us said to ourselves, we'll never be married. Mm-hmm. But I think both of us got to the point where we said, we're not looking for another person to fulfill us.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah, I actually heard a clip today, which I thought was so powerful, how this young woman was talking about how sometimes she's learned to express to God how dissatisfied sometimes she is with him. And I was like, what is she talking about? And I think it's coming into that place of realizing that you have to be satisfied within yourself, but also that relationship with God where maybe you have not allowed God into the places that you were hiding.
Yeah.
So if you've put a false expectation on God and he didn't meet those expectations, for example, you're waiting on a spouse and it didn't happen at the specific time that you planned it to be. I think that's what we're talking about, is really a full surrender where you are satisfied with God and where God has you in that moment. And like Ryan said, it's a godly desire for you to be a wife and for you to be a husband, for you to be a mother, for you to be a father. But I think through this process, God really teaches you to trust and trust his timing and trust that he knows you better than you even know yourself. I can speak for myself that, before I got even into major dating, I knew my values and I didn't date around. But I think when we got together, even as friends, a lot of things clicked. And I feel like when we actually started dating, I was overwhelmed how God even thought about the most smallest details of what I've prayed for or what I thought of, or even some things that I didn't even think about. And God made it happen. And it was so beautiful and it was so pure. So, yeah.
I think that most people want to believe that there's one person out there for you, and that no matter what you do, eventually your paths are going to cross. So you're just waiting for that one person.
Yeah.
Which I don't believe is true. I think the one is the one you choose, and we've discussed that before. However, that doesn't exclude God's involvement in the dating process. And in fact, if you're in intimate relationship with God, He will be the one to write and choreograph your love story for sure. But that means first allowing God to refine your values, reveal to you your calling and your purpose, and pour into you your identity in Christ. The first section of our book is all about identity. It talks about gender roles, you understanding the kind of role that you feel called to play in the relationship, and then the kind of roles that are mandated by God as biblical roles for a woman or a man in a relationship, and then preparing yourself for that role and submitting to God's plan for your life. And those things will open up opportunities for you to meet people, because it's very interesting. When you start realigning your value system, when you start making different decisions based on those values, people will automatically exit your life. And you will go through a transitional phase that will feel uncomfortable, but you are removing the seat fillers and allowing space for the right network of friends to come into your life.
Yes.
And when you have friends, not just people you want to date, but friends in general who share the same values as you, then you are eliminating all of the red flag people, and you are allowing God to narrow the pool of people. You know, many people say that there are many fish in the sea, and that's used to encourage people, but it also overwhelms them.
Yeah.
It's like, will I ever find this needle in a haystack? But really it comes down to you refining your values so that you become a big fish in a small pond. You don't want to fish in the ocean. You want to fish in the pond that is filled with the type of candidates. And I say that because not in a political sense, but in some sense, you're having to qualify a person, and they're qualifying you as to whether or not you're compatible. So you really want to find that specific pond of people who share the same interests, values, and the kind of direction that you want your life to go into. And then when you're a big fish in a small pond, it makes the dating process easier. Mm-hmm. It removes all of the superficial barriers, and it allows you to kind of organically develop these relationships that
based on mutual
interest and
sure.
purpose,
like
that turn into something romantic.
Yeah, we literally just scrolled through all the dating apps that are available, and it's interesting how they're kind of segmented by different groups of people. Like, this is for Christians, this is for Muslims, this is for people that want to hook up. Like, you don't want to be amongst all of that. Like, why would you want to, just because the world says go and date around and have fun and all that stuff, why would you want to open up yourself to that? And that's what Ryan is saying is, finding people that have the same goals and values so that you are dating amongst those people, not let me just test it out and see what I like. To me, that just really speaks of your intention of really, I'm not really sure what your intention is, whether it's marriage or whether it's companionship or what it is.
I think that most people get on all of these dating apps because there's a hole in their soul.
Yeah.
They're trying to fill, and they're searching instead of being patient with the process. Because I'm not opposed to dating apps as long as you're not, searching for that someone to fill that void, which is why you go on the Tinder apps or some of these other kind of superficial dating apps that are really hookup driven, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that you also realize that you're not going to build a relationship through the dating app. The outer court, which we talk about, the outer court, the inner court, and the Holy of Holies, which is the 3-phase approach to dating God's way. The outer court is where you're going to spend most of your time because this is the qualifying phase. A smaller group of people will go into the inner court, and one person, God willing, will step into the most holy place with you. And so that outside qualifying phase is where you're going to determine your value system and whether they align with that person, and also whether or not you both have the same goal in mind. A lot of people date who don't have an interest in marriage. Mm-hmm. In fact, I want to look at some of the dating apps, and according to CloudWords, they did a really good kind of a catalog of statistics, recent statistics as of 2021 on dating apps. So let's just look at a couple. And this isn't to discourage you, but it's just to make you aware of this tool that you're using and how to use it, right? There are 323.9 million users as of 2021 on dating apps. Now, this is around the world, but again, we're talking about the big ocean versus you having to find your pond. If you go into that big $323 million ocean, you're going to get lost. So that's why you have to choose the right dating apps that align with your values. And so that would be apps like Upward, which is a Christian dating app, eHarmony even. And there are problems. No dating app is perfect, but if your first kind of qualifier is that you want a Christian person, then you need to be in a space where Christian people are. Now, granted, there are people who are Christian, but yet you're still misaligned with, right? They believe differently than you, even though they still claim the title Christianity. You're going to have a lot less to weed out. And certainly I'm sure that there are people who go on these Christian dating apps who are not Christian, who want to take advantage of people. You're always going to have a Judas in the mix, so to speak.
For sure.
But at least you're whittling it down and you're saying, I'm not going on Tinder or Grindr, or I don't even know some of these apps, but I know that those are like sex-based apps, like you're looking for a hookup. And so avoid those apps and go into the smaller pools that you feel like you can find people. But other statistics here is that 1/4 of online dating users don't want a commitment.
That's interesting.
It's interesting that only 3/4 of the people want some kind of commitment, and only 19% of online users, 19% of online users have talked to 11 plus people at once, which I don't think is all that bad if you're having these initial conversations. Where it goes wrong on these dating apps is that you're spending an extensive amount of time with people. And when I say extensive, I mean weeks and even months. The goal of social media, and I say this for churches as well, I don't think that you can have a church online. I think that you can evangelize online. I think that you can certainly inspire people and connect with people, but it is what it is. It is a touch point, but there has to be some person across the table interaction in order to build authentic community. And the same is true with dating apps. Like, you can't build a relationship on a dating app. So my recommendation is that if you find someone who you're remotely interested in, get on the phone very quickly. Hear their voice, begin to have a conversation with them, even if it's, don't overwhelm a person, but 30 minutes. And I think that people who are serious about dating for marriage are not going to have a problem with you wanting to talk, and it doesn't even have to be through your phone number. There are so many other ways that you can connect. You can send them a Zoom link, and then they don't have your phone number. There's ways to protect yourself But you got to get face to face in some way. And ultimately, you want to make that first step to be able to meet them in person, because unless they're, hundreds or thousands of miles away, you want to have that opportunity very quickly to get in their presence, so that you remove the mask of technology and get to the core of who they really are, Yeah,
and if they give you a runaround or they don't want to get on the phone, then most likely it's a red flag.
Yeah.
They're either not
Why would they
serious
not
or
want
it's
to
a
get on the phone?
catfish. I mean, that's just point blank. That means that they're probably that 1/4 of the population that just doesn't want to commit and is there for other reasons than that. Because honestly, a lot of us can sit there on our phones or on our computers and we can type things up pretty quickly and pretty well. Like we can think thoroughly of what we can say to really make it sound really good. But if we get on the phone, let's be honest, we're really going to speak what's in our heart, and what it's going to come out. Like it's going to come out in conversation. So you may not even have to see them visually. You know what I'm saying? Like even if you have a discussion about what their values are, like, and what do they believe? You can really hear it from a person. If you are serious in dating, you can hear it. They're going to really give themselves away through talking.
The process that you're navigating through will take years through messages. It will take months through, FaceTime or calling. And it could take weeks to know whether or not this person is a qualified candidate within person. It could even take days within person. What I'm trying to say is that you exponentially decrease the amount of time that it's going to take for you to qualify that person, for them to step out of the outer court and into the inner court. Mm-hmm. And you want to get people into that inner court, because that's the place where real connection happens, because you're talking about dreams, visions, matters of the soul, habits, family traditions. And those are the things that really start weaving you together or tearing you apart. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, that's a gift. A lot of people talk about the toxic side of social media as it relates to how we present ourselves online. And we don't really present our authentic self. We present a filtered version of ourselves. But I think an even more toxic aspect of social media is the lies we believe about other people that affect our mental health, that affect the way that we view ourselves. Either we're looking at people's highlight reels and believe everybody's life is going amazingly well, and we're the only person who's isolated in this corner with shame, guilt, pain, heartache, which is a complete lie we're all going through. Mm-hmm. So we're comparing our now struggle with somebody else's highlight reel. Or we create narratives about the people that we see online, especially in the dating process. They don't exist. They may not have even shown themselves, but you're projecting your idea of what you would want a spouse to be on a picture, on this one-dimensional display of a person on social media. You've got to get in a 3-dimensional space. You've got to use more senses, right? You've got to be able to know what kind of environment they're carrying. And that means you've got to get with them in person. So you got to qualify them very quick. Remember, big fish in a small pond. That's your goal. Let's look through a couple more statistics. Of course, online dating is continuing to grow. 19% of internet users are currently using it. Different age groups have different preferences, and that we all know that to be true as well. But this one's a good one. 42% of online dating users aim for marriage. So even if, 3/4 of them want a commitment, only 42% their goal is marriage. So again, we can look at these statistics and feel discouraged, or we could look at it and say, okay, then that needs to be one of my first qualifying questions. Like, what is your goal for being on this dating app?
Yeah, that's very good.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think when you're starting direct message conversations, I think having something, funny or charming to say is always good. But ultimately, I think people just want honesty. Hey, I saw your profile. It looks like you're a cool person. I would love to know a little bit more about you. And then say, hey, why did you get on dating apps? What's your goal here? And, if you let people talk long enough, they will start telling the truth, right? I love Judge Judy says that, if you tell the truth, all you have to have is a short memory, because it's very easy to recall the truth because it lives present within your body. And that's why when you talk with people who are liars for a long period of time,
they can keep up with their story.
They can't keep up with the
hard.
story. Yeah. So there's psychological, approaches to this thing as well. You don't want to get people talking and weed through, the lies and get to the meat of who they really are. And of that 42% who aim for marriage, only 13% get engaged or married from using an online platform. That just tells me that, again, we have to move beyond the barrier of technology and get to something real and organic.
Yeah.
I think it's like food. You can see a visual of food on the screen. And now there's all of these social media influencers who are, what do they call them? Food designers or prop masters, and all of these crazy things cereal commercials. Instead of it being milk, it's actually glue. It just
to make it thicker.
To make it thick and hold, it's this mirage. And then we go to the fast food restaurant, and that burger does not look like the burger that you saw on the commercial.
Looks flat.
But in a lot of ways, we can taste the food almost, looking at it on the screen, or you're like, oh man, I could go for some Italian right now, because you see the atmosphere of Olive Garden or whatever. That's what the dating apps are like. But you've got to get in person and grab a hold of it organically to taste and see whether it's a rotten apple or it's a good apple.
Yeah, I would say if you're using, dating apps, or even if you're using your Instagram profile for your personal use, but you're wanting to get out there, I think just being honest, you can put a couple of things in your bio about, who it is that you are. Being honest up front, I think will help you to be more authentic. A lot of people are insecure about certain things. And I mean, it's your business of what you want to post, but I think just being authentic in general, if you are going to use those kind of platforms, there are going to be people that are going to be inauthentic and are going to post pictures that are unrealistic, that actually is not them. But I think it's important for you to be that way, because you don't want to get somebody that, may be attracted to something that you posed and it's not really somebody that you are. You want to be authentic, to attract the authentic person that you want to have.
Let's talk about that. So when it comes to your dating profile, choose one or two dating apps that you'll be a part of. Don't be on 10 different apps at once. You're confusing yourself. Stay focused on one or two particular apps. Number 2, complete the profile. Actually fill out the bio, put in your interests, whatever that particular app is asking of you, and put some pictures up, right? Don't put group pictures as your main picture. Which one are you? That's just common sense, but it's you and 2 other friends. It's whose dating app is this? Is this yours or theirs?
And we talked with somebody and they were like, please put a full body shot, the full body. I mean, not to be superficial, but it's don't be taking those selfies with those blurred out filters on your face from up top. I can't even see what your face is like.
Take a real picture unfiltered. Take a good picture. I mean, the average phone camera is, better than the digital cameras that we grew up with, Mm-hmm. So take a good picture with good front-facing light, a good image of who you are, and then some fun pictures, maybe you doing some things that you like. Fill out the bio, but let your bio move beyond the superficial. Don't say what you want in the bio. I think that's a mistake most people make. Mm-hmm. They say, looking for a blah, blah, blah. Instead...
Don't do that,
No. Tell who you are and what values you have, and let them be attracted to that, you're going to attract the person that you want, not by saying, I want this kind of person, but by saying, this is the person I am. Are you compatible? So that means you have to know what your values are, right? So what are some values that you hold dear? I want to challenge some of you out there to make a list of values. Are you adventurous? What does that mean? Life is meant to be experienced, right? So if you're an adventurous person and you want an adventurous spouse, that might be a cool quote to put in your bio. Instead of just saying, looking for, an adventurous person, or putting one of these, random, Pinterest quotes, just say, I believe. That's a good starting word, that expresses values. I believe life is meant to be experienced, and say, I am this. Use a lot of I am statements. That's not superficial. That's not egotistical. People want to know who you are. You could say, I love Jesus Christ. I'm a worshiper, artist, singer. Life is meant to be experienced. That's what I believe. Authenticity. I can't be anything other than myself. That's what that means. Authenticity. Do you value that? Commitment. If I say it, I will do it. That's what commitment is. Compassion, when you feel deeply for the pain of others. Loyalty, consistency, reliability. That simply means you can depend on me. Are these your values? Write it down. Courage, right? Courage. A courageous person, they would say, I eat fear for breakfast. Not that you should put that in your bio. Please don't, because that's very cheesy. But for the sake of this conversation, do you value courage, enthusiasm, good humor, honesty, honor, independence, right? What if you're a person who values independence? You like your space and your ability to make free choices. That's going to be an important conversation that you have in the dating process, to say, listen, I want a partner, but I still value my sovereignty as an individual, right? I still value the fact that I have this career, depending on what your career is, and say, I want you to be a partner in this with me, but no, I'm not going to monopolize every aspect of your life, right? And some people might find that comforting, to know that you're not going to smother them. Yeah, right?
For sure.
This isn't about my obsession with you. This is about my obsession with God's purpose for my life. And if we're both obsessed about the same thing and we're moving in the same direction, and I look to the left and you're standing there, then you're the person I want to be with for the rest of my life. Not am I so obsessed with you. We talk about marriage with a mission, and talk about that obsession that people have that is very superficial, infatuation. He gives me butterflies. Look at the way she looks at me with those green eyes or blue eyes or whatever. And, this sexual chemistry, that fades very quickly in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And 2 years into a marriage, like, you're staring and saying, what are we doing with our lives? Mm-hmm. And you've got to be able to answer these questions, preferably before you say, I do. Preferably before you start dating. So write out a list of your core values, right? Loyalty, courage, enthusiasm, humor, independence, kindness, open-mindedness, right? I'm ready to learn and never feel like I'm 100% right. That's a good value to have. Mm-hmm. Optimism. There's always a silver lining in a storm cloud. Perseverance. I won't give up no matter the cost or sacrifice. Accountability. Do you value accountability? What is that? We're better when we hold each other to our collective values. What are your values? That's the outer court, is qualifying a person. If you don't know who you are, how can you expect somebody else to, understand that you could be a potential spouse? If you don't know who you are, then the only thing you're offering is the physical. The only thing you're offering is sex. The only thing you're offering is a good laugh, maybe,
Yeah, I think the world really wants us to focus on the superficial side of a relationship, which is, are you attracted? Is this person really good looking? Is he hot? Is she hot? Is this going to be my trophy wife or trophy husband? And
what does that have to do with your values?
You forget to really actually have a conversation. And of course you make that commitment because you're so infatuated. And then when marriage hits and, real life sets in, it's like, oh, wow, we're completely different. I'm like, well, where were those times when you were supposed to ask those questions? This is the time to actually ask those questions. And if the person is being superficial, that's another red flag for you, because they probably have not thought about their life, have not thought about their purpose, have not thought about what are they going to do in their life. They're really just in this place of, wanting maybe a good time. Maybe they don't even know what their intention is, or they do know their intention is probably not a commitment if they're going to be that superficial, because somebody that's really thought about marriage and being committed, I'm pretty sure they think of it and take it a lot more seriously than just, how does this person look? And can I spend the rest of my life with this person?
Here's what I want to challenge you to do whenever you're on these dating apps. I want you to have an arsenal of really thought-provoking, intriguing questions. Not deep questions, but questions that could reveal something about that person in a playful way. Like when you're introducing yourself to someone, and you could say something to the effect of, what is one bright moment from this week that you say, this is what brought me joy? And you could say, what was one of the most challenging parts about your week? Who asks those kind of questions?
Yeah.
If I got a message like that after, not as the first question, but, like we mentioned earlier, stating your intentions, I recognize your profile and I want to, get to know you a little bit better. Hi, how are you? Where are you from? And then eventually, a few lines later, asking a thought-provoking question. I think when people see that, they're taken aback, because nobody is really that inquisitive. But also their response will tell you a little bit about who they are without even asking, what do you do for a living, right?
That's true.
It'll automatically go into, well, if maybe they're a CNA and they say, well, we lost a patient this week and it was really, really tough. But you know what? The joyful part about it was I felt like I served them well before they died.
That's good.
That's
like an organic conversation starter, really, because you're not like having a list of things and being intimidating about, okay, I'm going to ask this person all these questions, and then it's like, okay, I don't like them, and I'm just going to move on. And just being organic with people. If you really like them, just like Ryan said, having a thought-provoking question where it can start a conversation organically and not, feel like it's being forced.
And I think also, like, a good idea is if you're planning a date with a person, or even a FaceTime date, right, for an initial, connection point, like, don't exchange too many messages before that. If you've already said, hey, you want to chat on Tuesday night, or you want to meet for coffee on Wednesday morning before work or whatever, or on your lunch break, which I think is a great time to meet, because you have a designated amount of time. You have an hour lunch break. You take 15 minutes to get there, 15 minutes to get back. That means you have 30 minutes with a person. What can you find out in 30 minutes? Well, you can find out whether or not they're safe enough to go on a one-on-one date with, for sure, or even if they're interesting enough, if they catch your attention in 30 minutes, or if you make some kind of connection, then you can go to the next step. But once you make that date or that opportunity to talk in person or over the phone or FaceTime, stop messaging back and forth. Don't ghost them. I'm not saying that, but stop having these long, exhaustive paragraph conversations. Save it for the date, right? You're clouding everything. You're sending their mind into all different directions, and you're creating anxiety before you even get to the date. So, message back and forth and say, I can't wait for our conversation tomorrow night. I keep looking at your picture, and I just want to tell you, you have such beautiful eyes. I can't wait to get to know more about what's behind those eyes.
Okay.
Oh, what? What? Hold on. Some snapping fingers here. Those are the kind of things that people don't think about. Like they're very superficial, or they go deep right away in those messages.
And that freaks people out.
It does. Like, who are you? And why am I sharing this with you? You're a complete stranger. It feels weird and robotic. And then they feel like, I'm going to write a paragraph then delete it 10 times, or I'm going to write a paragraph and show it to 5 of my other friends and say, how would you change that? Now you're not getting them, you're getting 5 of their friends. How
That's
many
true.
people, you're guilty of it out there. I know that you have been on a dating app or been messaging a person that you like, and you've held before you hit that send button and you turn to 2 or 3 of your girlfriends and say, would you say anything different? You're guilty. They're not getting you, they're getting them. That's not who you are. That's not how you would say it. But when you're one-on-one with a person and there's nobody whispering in your ear, they get the real you. And not only that, you get the real them. They're doing the same thing that you're doing. Stop all of the paragraph messages. Don't overwhelm these people and get to the organic face-to-face conversations, in person or on FaceTime or over the phone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think when you're a part of community, like plugged into church, serving and having just human interaction in general, I think that those conversations can become a little bit more natural too. Because I think sometimes if we are so isolated and we isolate ourselves by always keeping our head down, whether we're in the elevator or at the gym or anywhere else, we're constantly looking at our phone, texting somebody, looking at something, scrolling this, scrolling that. We don't even look up or have normal day-to-day interaction with human beings. But those things are important because it actually helps you to, even in those awkward moments of riding in an elevator. I know we experience that very often. You come in and it's like, doo-doo-doo, and our elevator is super awkward. But I think just being intentional, maybe putting your phone down and asking the person, hey, how are you? And sometimes it actually throws people off because they're so not used to it. They're like, I'm good. Why are you you know what I'm saying? Because I think that we're so glued to our phones and to our screens, we almost don't really know how to have that human interaction. But it's important if you are going to want to have a date or want to have good companionship. You're going to have to learn how to have those meaningful conversations, especially if you're wanting to get married and have a good marriage, because that's going to require a lot of communication. You won't be able to text your spouse sitting in the other room. So just making sure that you're being plugged in a good community, whether it's church, whether it's a group, whether it's a book club. I know some of my siblings are actually a part of a book club with some other couples. And I think that in general just helps you to, stimulate yourself intellectually to be able to have those conversations instead of, just being glued to your phone constantly.
I think that's a good place to take this conversation, which is beyond the dating apps, right? Because not everyone out there is going to find someone through a dating app. Really, only 14% of you are, right? But I think those same strategies that we just talked about for dating etiquette online, it's very relevant for your day-to-day life. It's about creating space for opportunity. Right? If every second or moment of your day has already been spoken for, then you have no space for any other person. What do I mean by that? We no longer sit in waiting rooms and read magazines or look around or talk to the person next to us on the plane. It's ear pods in, face into social media. Right? It's a way of us not having to confront the awkward reality of there are people around me that I don't know. And we've become comfortable in that place of dysfunction to where, like Victoria said, we live in these beautiful lofts here. Every day we go up and down the elevator. And I can't tell you the number of times that, people, just standing to the side with their phones scrolling or whatever. And it is really odd for people, when you say, hey, how are you doing? Are you planning for a good day? Little things like that, or, seeing things that they're carrying or wearing, or, not in a creepy way. There's a way to approach the conversation that is I noticed that, but not in a creepy way. There's an art to it, right? If they're, carrying a bag of groceries, you could say, oh, looks like you're about to cook a good meal tonight. They could say, yeah, I'm having my favorite meal, lasagna. And I say, oh, are you a good cook? Yeah. Yeah, me too. I love to cook X, Y, and Z. These organic conversations that lead to something else.
Or saying to a person like, I like your skirt, or, I like, you look really nice today. Like,
I don't know if a guy said to a girl, I like your skirt. I'm kidding.
I'm saying that because like today, I kind of make it a point, especially to females, because I think that, personal opinions is that a lot of times we as women tend to look at a woman and actually admire something, but we don't say anything. So I make it a point to usually say to like a female during the day, like, well, I like your skirt. It's really cool. Or like an outfit that they're wearing, because I don't think that women often applaud each other. I think sometimes we stare each other down. Even if we like something, we don't say it. But anyway, those are the things that you can do to kind of start maybe an organic conversation, or even like, uplift somebody. Hey, like you're sowing seeds.
Be an encourager. Yeah.
Sow seeds of encouragement, and allow people to see your light. This is the way we also are able to witness to other people. And who knows the people that you may connect to through that.
Don't be so serious about it where you think, is this the one? Is this the one?
Yeah,
is this the person that could be my spouse?
Yeah.
Let it just be organic.
Yeah.
Just be organic about the relationships that you're building every single day. Again, creating space is every second of your day, monopolized by technology or work or your schedule or this or that. So I want to offer you a challenge at the end of this podcast. Get into a dating app, but use some of the tips that we've told you and set it up correctly. Get off of the app as quickly as possible. Use the dating app like a trampoline. Jump on, jump off. You want to take them out of that artificial world as quickly as possible. Number 2, I want you to look at ways of creating space for opportunity. Look for ways of creating space for opportunity for new relationships in your life. What does that mean? What does your current social constellation look like? Are your relationships stagnant? Do you have seat fillers? Do you have people who are fulfilling spaces in your life that your spouse will eventually fill? And what if you eliminate that dependency on these certain people? I wonder if that need would attract a spouse, right? Mm-hmm. Especially men, we want to see that there's a need that we can fulfill in your life. We've discussed that before. But you, in general, might need to ask yourself, what relationships need readjustment in order to make room for a future spouse? If you've got a bunch of friends of the opposite sex, that can tend to be intimidating, right? Mm-hmm. How much competition is here?
Yeah.
Or if you are cliquish, like even with the people of the same sex, like it's pretty intimidating even in a public space for a man to approach a group of 5 to 10 girls and ask for your number. But if you're with 1 or 2, it's less intimidating, right? And then there's also, if you're a female, the whole concept of throwing the hanky, which is back in the day, women, they would have their umbrellas walking down the street. They would drop the handkerchief in front of the man. He would pick it up and run after them. Ma'am, you forgot this. And he would feel as if he was like this knight in shining armor.
I mean, we all know what those subliminal things are. I literally a few days ago saw this at a coffee shop, and I guess I'm observant, but I just watch people. And this guy was at the register, and this girl, you could tell she was probably single, and she ordered coffee, and right next to the register was a cup for the tips, and she laid a $5 bill. Like, who lays a $5? Usually it's like $1. Okay, I got some loose change. Girlfriend laid $5 tip in that little cup. And I'm like, oh, that's a hanky right there. She's throwing a little hanky. There's little things that you can do. Right? Yeah.
I mean, you could be sitting, at the edge of your seat, and you notice someone, and you allow your jacket to fall off the back of your chair, right? If you're in a group setting especially, and there's some guys there, let it fall off the back of your chair. See which one of the guys picks it up.
Or see if they all step over it.
Or see if they'll step over it, right? I mean, unless it's an expensive jacket. But there are things that you can do to let someone know that I'm available subliminally. And also for men, it's very intimidating for men to approach you stale, like dry, cold turkey. Warm up the space a little bit between you and them. This is a good one right here. Close the gap, right? If you're in a group of people, you're at a holiday party, right? We've got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, events happening at church, right? You have a guy that you're interested in or a girl that you're interested in, right? Close the gap of space between you and them, whatever that means, and find yourself in right proximity, especially if you're the woman, to give them an opportunity, if they want to take it, to be able to get to know you more, right? Here's another thing I want to challenge you to do. Is I want you to look at your current routine, your weekly schedule, and say, am I taking the same path to work? Am I going to the same coffee place? Am I getting my lunch from the same place? Have I been working out at the same gym for 5 years and haven't met any new people? Have I been working out alone? Should I take a class? Should I start a new hobby? Should I go and volunteer for church in a new ministry, right? I've been on the worship team for 10 years, right? Why don't I go and help out in youth? Or why don't I go help out in the outreach department or the helps ministry, and add that to your plate for the opportunity to meet new people? This can be any part of your life. If you're honest, you drive the same path to work, you have the same routine every week, and you don't divert from that. Your friend group is very closed. You want to open up and find spaces in your life for new people to be able to enter in. So that's what I want to challenge you to do. I want you to step out of the things that you would consider normal or comforting in order to meet new people. One of the things that I did right before I met Victoria, and I didn't know that I was going to meet her, but I knew my current relationships and friendships had grown stale and stagnant, and they were holding me back. It wasn't that they were bad people. It was that they were preventing me from meeting new people. And when I let go of those relationships in a season of transition, I felt lonely, but I wasn't alone. God was speaking to me and revealing to me my purpose. And it was in that season that God introduced me to Victoria's family. Mm-hmm. And this new world opened up to me. I'd never met Slavic people, maybe in passing, but not like realizing it, much less engaging with that culture. I would have never told you 20 years ago that I would marry a Ukrainian girl. I would have said I would have married a Colombian or Mexican or African American or somebody like me. I don't know. But I would have never said that. But because I created space for the opportunity, and I said yes, this is important. I said yes to things that I would otherwise not feel comfortable with saying because I wanted to be in my comfort zone. That means yes to opportunities, to go to a conference, to an event, to a party, those sorts of things. That was where I met Victoria.
Mm-hmm. Really stepping out of your comfort zone. Like you said that, I think it was preaching on Sunday, you said that your comfort zone is not always your safe zone. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes we're so comfortable in our places, we just want to stay there. We don't want to try new things, or it's scary. And it may feel scary, it may feel awkward at first, but I think getting out there and actually experiencing new experiences is going to really, I feel like, put a little bit of fire under your feet and give you some more motivation to dream and maybe have exposure to different kinds of people. I think sometimes people lack even exposure to different kinds of people because they're all within their group, they're all within their family, or just within a certain kind of group that they grew up with. And I feel like that they have like this, is it myopic point of view? See, I'm learning big words from you because that's Ryan's word. But and it wasn't until I was open to really understanding like the American culture and then being around like even the Black culture and then the Hispanics. And I mean, in my family, I have a brother-in-law who is Mexican. I have, Ryan is American, and I'm sure that we'll have, there's another one that Brazilian. So like we have different mixes of culture. And I think that exposes us to understand that there's different kinds of people, still a lot of the same values, interestingly enough. But it's still very interesting to see their point of view and the way they live life. So it's just good to expose yourself to all kinds of different people, because I think that you'll really appreciate that in the long run as well.
Listen, your comfort zone is the place where your dreams go to die. Your dream to be married, your dream to have a family and children and to experience lasting love, that dream is going to die in the comfort zone. You've got to be okay with stepping into the unknown. You know, Moses found himself in the wilderness. Moses heard this calling from God, and he had these passions that were inside of him. He went into the wilderness and he stopped at a place, and that new experience, environment led him to finding Zipporah, you know, who became his wife. And then eventually she partnered with him to be able to go into Egypt and deliver the people. And I think that if it means moving cities, changing jobs, taking a leap of faith, moving out of your current apartment complex and moving to an apartment complex across town, meeting new people requires that you make bold choices, leaps of faith to take you out of your comfort zone, to be able to create space, an opportunity for new relationships. We don't want to overwhelm you because we've been talking for a while and this is a lot to digest. In fact, some of you might need to rewind this and listen to this a couple of days this week, in the morning, on your way to work or whatever, in the gym while you're on the elliptical, whatever you do. You know, get this in you to challenge you to think outside of the status quo and use these dating apps in the right functional way. Mm-hmm. There's a wrong way to do a thing and there's a right way. The internet is a toxic cesspool of hateful, vile people and a horrible environment for your brain. But on the other end, the people who use the internet right make a lot of money. They build a lot of connections. They inspire a lot of people, and they use it for good. Use the dating apps for good. Don't go on the dating apps just to tantalize your flesh, to meet this temporary need. Go on there with a specific purpose, and don't waste your time with long messages with people without getting to an organic environment where you can get to know them. Yeah. So, helping you to rethink your dating strategy is what we're here to do. So make sure that you stay connected with us on social media at More, Most, and Forever. And here's what I also want to do. You can text us, right? You can text us and we will respond. It's going to be us. If you want to stay anonymous, we'll keep it anonymous. But if you have a dating message that you want to screenshot and you want our advice, we'll give you advice on it. Anything that we share, you know, we'll make sure we have your permission in sharing it. But if you want it behind the wall and you say, hey, how should I, approach this situation? We'll give you some wisdom on your dating bio. Screenshot your dating app and we'll help you out to make sure you're positioned in the best way possible to meet new people, right?
Yes.
If you want to text us, you can text 864-428-7131, 864-428-7131. If you go to moremostforever.com, you'll see the banner there. Click on it. It opens up your text messages right there. That's all you need. Shoot us a message. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, it goes directly to us. We would love to hear from you guys. But as always, thank you for joining us for another Needed Conversations. We will see you guys on our next episode next week.
That's right.